Hold on. So JC said he couldn't hear anything here. So we're going to go back real quick. Do apologize for this. We're going to go back. Hopefully can go back and cut this out just a little bit too. So we are going to restart essentially altogether because this is week 3 for Coach Goes Back to College. Didn't have a microphone turned on there for now. Hopefully you guys can hear at this point in time. If you can't, be sure to let me know. But the prospect to know for this week, once again, Omarion Hampton, running back for North Carolina, 6 foot, 220 pounds, so pretty typical size that we're looking for an NFL running back, projected to run in the low 4.5s. Excuse me. Can you guys hear me now or not? Hear me. So I think I'm live now for the mic. Let me just double as we're talking through it. Audio. Looks like the volume should be good now, though. Okay, there we go. It says that. So I do apologize for that. I forgot to add because of the overlay. So, like I was saying, Omarion Hampton, 6 foot, 220 pounds, pretty prototypical size for an NFL running back. Projected around the low 4.5s. Kind of just going to restart for all this. He's a former 4-star recruit, true sophomore. If you could have heard what I said originally, he did have a pretty decent true freshman season. 13 games, 401 rushing yards, 4.6 yards per carry, 6 rushing touchdowns, 6 receptions for 40 yards and a touchdown. So far through 2 games this season in 2023, 271 rushing yards, 6.5 yards per carry, 5 rushing touchdowns, coming off a really good game last week against Appalachian State where he had over 200 yards rushing, 3 rushing touchdowns, only 1 reception on the season for 10 yards. He's got 0 touchdowns in the receiving department this year, but kind of when you're looking at him, a guy that's got pretty good vision, guy that has really good contact bounce, guy that has pretty good strength or above average strength, and, has good initial bursts. Kind of the detriments to him, probably the long speed. But if he can get into that high 4.4s, he's going to be somebody that's pretty interesting moving forward. A guy that can probably carry a workload, was really prolific in his high school career as well. We obviously saw a little bit of him as a true freshman. I think he's going to be somebody to definitely monitor. Could come out next year in 2025, but he could also be coming out in 2026. When I was looking over at Draft Scout, they did have him listed as the number 9 running back for 2026, but maybe a guy that was a little bit under the radar, but hopefully breaks out as a true sophomore. I think what I said earlier, if you guys could have heard it, sounded a little bit better, but do apologize for that ultimately overall. We're going to go over to that game of the week, though. So once again, let me get back over there. So once again, do apologize that couldn't hear anything. So game of the week is Pittsburgh at West Virginia. There wasn't like a lot of crazy games this week. This is one that is projected to be close, at least on paper. It's one of the oldest rivalries in all of football, 14th oldest. It started in 1895. This is known as the Backyard Brawl. 105 games in total. Pittsburgh does lead the overall series. They have 62 wins, 40 losses, and 3 ties. So back in the day when there could be ties, that was a good one there. And then this game will air on ABC at 6:30 Central Time. So if you're Eastern time, it's 7:30. If you're Mountain time, it's 5:30. And then if you're West Coast time, it's 4:30. If you're like overseas in Europe or something else like that, just kind of factor in the time zone differences. But West Virginia is projected to be 2.5-point home favorites. Over under on this game is 47 points. I think both these teams kind of haven't hit their stride so far this season. They're both 1-1. They both beat the teams they should have beaten. And then Pittsburgh, I believe, let me look at this again because I do have this listed up here too. West Virginia lost to Penn State in week 1, and then Pittsburgh lost to Cincinnati in week number 2, which was actually a pretty close game, 27-21 in favor of Cincinnati. So I think it's going to be a very interesting game. For Pittsburgh, they're going to be led by transfer or probably grad transfer quarterback at this point in time, Phil Jurkovich. Looks like Marcy says she can't hear now. So not sure what's up with that, but Pittsburgh is led by former transfer quarterback, formerly of Notre Dame, formerly of Boston College, Phil Jurkovich. He's actually from Pittsburgh, which was something I didn't even take full advantage of knowing until I was kind of looking into this game a little bit more. Pittsburgh's got an interesting wide receiver in Keonta Mumphrey, who did transfer over last year, didn't do too much for them. So I think it's going to be a big breakout year for him. Gavin Bartholomew is a pretty good tight end there. Rodney Hammond did show some flashes last year at running back alongside Israel Abanikanda, so he could be another interesting player, although he hasn't done too much to start the season. And then on the West Virginia side, they're going to be led by quarterback Garrett Green, I believe it is. He is a true I can't talk right now. True dual threat quarterback. So he is going to be very effective in the ground game and in the air. I think this game might ultimately end up hitting the under just because I think both these teams quite haven't hit their stride. At running back, West Virginia does have CJ Donaldson, who is kind of a weird hybrid last year, where he was kind of like a tight end slash running back. He was really a cheat code for college fantasy football last year, where he was eligible at tight end, but he was actually playing running back. Then he did ultimately get banged up. So he's going to be an interesting player, kind of a bowling ball player. And then for their wide receiver room, really depleted from what it was last year. So they lost two guys to the NFL, and Bryce Ford Wheaton and then Sam James both went undrafted. And then Caden Prather ultimately ended up transferring away too. So really interesting to see what they get out of that wide receiver unit, but should be a pretty interesting game overall. Not a game that I would personally bet on, but take into the fact you got the rivalry there. You got the 14th oldest rivalry in all of football. So it's going to be a good game. It's always a gritty game between these two teams overall. And obviously, at the end of the day, one of these two teams will be 2-1. The other one will be 1-2. So looking up for one team, not looking so hot for the other team at this point in time. Last but not least, we're going to go back over to my prop of the week. So for my prop of the week, we got Jawhar Jordan over 60.5 rushing yards. He is the running back for Louisville. He has hit the over his last 5 games in 2020. Then he hit the over both 2 games in 2023 so far. He goes against Indiana this week. Indiana so far this season allowing 143 rushing yards per game. That trend's pretty good since we only need 61 out of Jawhar Jordan, who is a pretty big play threat too. He could get this all in one run if he really wanted to. And last year, Indiana allowed almost 180 yards rushing per game. So on paper, this looks like a great prop. He has hit the last 7 games that he's played in total. Indiana can't stop the run. So definitely do like this prop overall. And then for the season to date, we're 1-2. Obviously, the first week got that bad hook with Bangura. Second week, Luke McCaffrey really let us down. But last week, we had Bo Nix going over 259.5 passing yards is all we needed out of him. He went 99 yards more than we needed. He smashed it over versus Texas Tech. So that was a really good one for us. So hopefully you were on the right side of that one last week. Looks like Jawhar Jordan should be able to put us in the money once again this week. But for what it's worth, that's pretty much what I have for Coach Craig Goes Back to College for week number 3, episode 4. If you have not already, be sure to subscribe to the Sports Affiliation channel. If you have not as well, be sure to check out my channel, Coach Craig Sports. If you're interested in any type of DFS, got NFL, CFL, USFL, XFL, NBA, and MLB. So if you're interested in pretty much any type of DFS at this point in time, definitely be sure to check that out, and be sure to check out all the other shows on the Sports Affiliation channel. But with that being said, that's pretty much all that I do have at this point in time. Do truly appreciate each and every one of you tune in, whether you're watching live or on replay. Do apologize that the mic was muted at the beginning, and we'll see if we can chop that out as we move forward. But definitely excited for week number 3 of college football. Should be a pretty interesting one overall. Like I said, not a lot of crazy games out there this week, but we got a couple old rivalry games, so those would be the ones that we're looking forward towards the most. But with that being said, definitely do appreciate every one of you tuning in, whether you're watching live or on replay. Once again, hopefully each and every one of you have a great rest of your day, no matter what day you're watching it on, and a pretty good weekend overall for you and your favorite college football team.